I never thought I would be telling this story, but what I saw changed my life forever. Even now, as I speak these words, I feel a weight pressing down on me, as if something beyond this world is watching, waiting. I have wrestled with the decision to share this for so long, afraid of what people might think, afraid of what it means. But after what I witnessed, I can no longer stay silent. It was October 12th, 2023, a night like any other, or so I thought. I had just finished a long shift at the hospital, exhausted, yet relieved to finally be heading home. The fluorescent lights, the hushed conversations in the halls, the rhythmic beeping of monitors. It was all behind me now. I just wanted to see my family, to sink into my bed, to forget about the weight of the world for a few hours. The road stretched out before me, dark and quiet, with only the occasional flicker of headlights in the distance. The rain had started to fall, light at first, then heavier, drumming against the windshield in a steady rhythm. I remember gripping the steering wheel tighter, my eyes fighting the fatigue creeping in. The wipers slid back and forth, their monotonous movement lulling me into a trance. And then, in a fraction of a second, everything changed. A sudden flash, headlights veering into my lane, the blaring of a horn, the screech of tires against wet pavement. I felt the impact before I even had time to react. My body jerked violently as metal crunched, glass shattered, and the world spun into chaos. There was no time to think, no time to process. Pain exploded through me, and then nothing. Just an eerie silence, a weightless emptiness. I was floating, or at least I thought I was. My body, my pain, my fear, gone. I tried to move, to breathe, but there was no air, no form, nothing but an overwhelming stillness. I should have been terrified, but instead, there was a strange sense of peace. As if I had been unshackled from something I never even realized was holding me down. Then, I saw it. A light, but not just any light. It wasn't blinding or harsh. It was soft, warm, beckoning. It pulsed like it was alive. And as I drifted toward it, a deep knowing filled me. It was calling me home. But just as I was about to step fully into it, something changed. The air around me grew heavy, charged with an energy I couldn't understand. And then, in the distance, I saw something that made my breath, if I still had breath, catch in my throat. A massive book, suspended in the air, glowing with an otherworldly radiance. It was ancient, yet untouched by time. Its pages shifting, as if whispering secrets meant only for those who dared to see. And in that moment, I knew this was no ordinary book. It held something far beyond anything I had ever known. I wanted to look away, but I couldn't. Something deep inside me urged me forward, compelled me to see what was written within. And as I drew closer, I felt a presence, powerful, overwhelming, yet filled with sorrow. I turned, and there he was, Jesus. His eyes, filled with both love and grief, bore into me as if he could see every hidden corner of my soul. And then he spoke. You must see. I felt my body go cold, and then everything changed. I hovered above the wreckage, weightless, unbound by the broken body lying motionless beneath me. The twisted metal of my car glistened under the flashing red and blue lights, rain pooling in the shattered windshield. I could see myself, my own lifeless form, crumpled in the driver's seat, my head tilted at an unnatural angle. It should have been horrifying. I should have been panicking. But there was no fear, no pain, only a strange, eerie detachment, as if I were watching a scene from someone else's life. The sirens wailed through the night, a chaotic symphony of urgency. But up here, in this strange, weightless existence, everything felt muted. Paramedics rushed in, shouting commands I couldn't fully hear. I watched as they pulled my limp body from the wreckage, laying me on the cold pavement. Chest compressions, the harsh gasp of a defibrillator charging, the desperate rhythm of hands pressing against my sternum, willing me back to life. Someone was crying. A woman, maybe a bystander, maybe someone who knew me. I wanted to tell them I was right here, that I wasn't afraid, but they couldn't hear me. They couldn't see me. Then, the scene shifted. I wasn't just watching the accident anymore. I was being pulled, carried effortlessly across space, past the shattered glass and flickering headlights. Suddenly, I was somewhere else. A hospital room. Sterile white walls, monitors beeping, my body lying motionless on a gurney. Doctors moved frantically, their voices blending into a blur of sound. I saw my family, my wife, her hands pressed to her mouth, eyes wide with disbelief. My mother collapsed into a chair, whispering prayers through shaking sobs. My brother, pacing the room, his knuckles white from clenching his fists. I wanted to reach for them, to reassure them, but I was nothing more than a whisper in the air. No one could see me. No one could feel me, and yet I could feel them. Their sorrow, their helplessness, their love. It wrapped around me like an unseen force, stronger than any earthly tether. For the first time since I had left my body, I felt a pang of sadness. Was this it? Was this how my story ended? Then I felt it, a pull, gentle yet commanding, a force so powerful, so absolute, that I could do nothing but surrender to it. The hospital room, the crash site, my grieving family, all of it faded away as I drifted upward, weightless. A warmth surrounded me, unlike anything I had ever known. It wasn't just warmth, it was peace, pure and unshakable, the kind of peace that erases fear, that washes away every worry, every regret. I had no body, no form, and yet I had never felt more alive. The world I had known was slipping away, but I wasn't afraid. I was being carried towards something greater, something I couldn't yet understand. And then I heard it, my name. It wasn't spoken aloud, not in the way we understand sound. It resonated through me, vibrating through every part of my existence. It was deep, familiar, filled with love and authority. I couldn't see him, but I knew. In my soul, I knew who it was. Then I saw him, Jesus. And what he showed me, I can never forget. A presence unlike anything I had ever known filled the space around me. It was vast, overwhelming, yet deeply personal, like the weight of eternity itself had settled into a single, undeniable moment. And then, he was there. At first, I couldn't fully see him, only feel him. The air itself trembled with his presence, thick with a power that defied words. A light radiated from him, not just around him, but from within, as if he was the very source of all light, all life. My soul recognized him before my mind did, and in that instant, every doubt, every question, every hesitation vanished. Then, I saw his eyes. They burned with fire and compassion, with a depth that held all of creation, yet pierced straight through me. Looking into them, I felt as though every hidden part of me, every fear, every failure, every unspoken longing was laid bare. Yet I was not condemned. I was known, fully, and still, I was loved. His voice wasn't just heard, it was felt. It resonated through me, through the very fabric of my being. When he spoke, it was as if the foundations of the universe trembled. Yet his words carried a tenderness that calmed every storm within me. "My child," he said, his tone both fierce and gentle. "I have brought you here for a reason. What I am about to show you must be shared with my people. A wave of awe and unworthiness crashed over me. I had no words, only the pounding realization that I was in the presence of the Almighty. But Lord, my voice was small, trembling. I'm just a nurse. Who will believe me? He looked at me then, really looked at me, as if he had been waiting for that question. A slight knowing sadness passed through his gaze, as though he had heard those same words from countless others. Before me, I have always used the humble to confound the wise, he said. It is not your strength that will accomplish this, but mine. Tears burned in my eyes. I wanted to believe, but the weight of what he was saying, of what he was asking, it felt too great. I am not worthy, I whispered. Jesus reached out, and the moment his hand touched mine, everything changed. The light around us shifted, the space we stood in dissolving into something new. Suddenly, we were somewhere else. The moment Jesus took my hand, the brilliance around us shifted, and suddenly I was standing in a world I did not recognize. It looked like Earth, but it wasn't the Earth I had known. Everything was sleek, efficient, too perfect. Towering buildings stretched toward the sky, their glass surfaces shimmering with digital projections. Roads were eerily silent, filled with self-driving vehicles that moved in seamless harmony. People walked the streets, their eyes fixed on holographic screens that floated before them, controlled with mere thoughts. I turned to Jesus, but he said nothing. He simply looked ahead, as if urging me to watch, to see. I noticed a young couple, at a cafe, smiling as they paid for their meal. Not with a card, not with cash, but with a simple wave of their hand. A subtle glow pulsed beneath their skin, as the transaction was instantly completed. No passwords, no verification, just effortless access. Nearby, a man stepped onto a train, and instead of scanning a ticket, he merely walked through a gate. A small chip embedded in his wrist confirmed his identity. I watched as a woman entered a grand church, one of the few still standing. She approached a sleek metallic podium near the altar. Without hesitation, she held out her hand, allowing a scanner to read the chip beneath her skin. A soft chime sounded. Her tithe had been given. It was so seamless, so convenient. No one questioned it. No one resisted. The enemy does not force his way in. Jesus spoke beside me, his voice filled with sorrow. He comes as an angel of light. I turned to him, my chest tightening. But Lord, they don't seem afraid. They don't seem oppressed. He looked at me with deep sadness. That is the greatest deception of all. The world believes it is being freed, but it is walking willingly into chains. The scene shifted. News broadcasts filled massive digital billboards, their glowing headlines celebrating new advancements in security. Governments across the world proudly encourage citizens to adopt biometric implants for their safety. A world without fraud, one banner read, a future without crime. I watched as a smiling official reassured the public that these measures were not mandatory. Yet, then I saw something that sent a chill through my soul. A gathering of religious leaders, priests, pastors, even those of faiths that once opposed each other, stood together, applauding this technological unification. One of them, a well-known Christian leader, held up his hand, revealing the same glowing mark beneath his skin. This is the way forward, he declared. Surely, God would not oppose what brings peace and security to his people. My heart pounded. Lord, I whispered, my throat dry. Is this the mark of the beast? Jesus turned to me, his expression unreadable. Not yet, he said. But watch how the deception unfolds. The world around me darkened, shifting like a collapsing dream. The once thriving cities were, now, suffocating under chaos. Sirens wailed in the distance. Flames devoured buildings, and desperate voices filled the air. People flooded the streets, their faces hollow with fear, their bodies frail from hunger and disease. The world was unraveling, and no one could stop it. News screens flickered with images of world leaders, their voices calm, yet firm, promising a solution. A final solution. The economic collapse had left millions without access to their own money. War had redrawn borders overnight, turning former allies into enemies. A new disease, resistant to all known medicine, swept through nations like an invisible fire. Panic ruled the streets, and then the announcement came. A global biometric system, a single unified digital identity. With it, no more fraud, no more hunger, no more war. A perfect world, they claimed. A system that would ensure fairness, safety, and peace. All anyone had to do was accept the mark. The screen showed people lining up, eager to receive it. A simple, painless procedure. A microscopic implant, invisible to the eye, but capable of unlocking everything they would ever need. No more lost bank cards. No more identity theft. No more restrictions. Just a world where everything worked, everything flowed. Join the future, the campaign urged. Be part of the solution. I watched as parents brought their children forward, their hands shaking with relief. Business owners, struggling to stay afloat, embraced the system, thrilled that they could finally function again. Even churches, once hesitant, now encourage their members to comply. God would not want you to suffer, one pastor reassured his congregation. This is simply a tool, nothing more. But then, I saw what others could not. The moment the mark was received, something shifted. It was subtle at first, just a flicker, like a candle being snuffed out. But then I realized what I was witnessing. These people, mothers, fathers, children, had not just changed physically, their souls had changed. I saw a man kneeling by his bed, hands clasped, lips moving in desperate prayer, but something was wrong. He kept speaking, but it was as if his words vanished into empty space. I felt his sorrow, his confusion. He still believed, still wanted to reach God, but the connection was gone. A woman clutched her Bible, tears streaming down her face. She whispered scripture, holding on to the last shred of hope she had, but her voice carried no weight. The words were empty. They could still pray. I murmured, horror dawning on me. But their connection to you, it's gone. Beside me, Jesus' expression was filled with sorrow, deeper than anything I could fathom. His presence, once so full of strength and light, now carried the weight of unbearable grief. Those who take this can no longer hear my voice, he said softly. The truth of his words struck me like thunder. This was not just about control. This was not just about economics, convenience, or safety. This was the final deception, a choice that once made could never be undone, and the world was walking into it willingly. The world around me collapsed into darkness. The vision, the sorrow in Jesus' eyes, the last echo of his voice. It all faded in an instant, and then pain. A violent, crushing force slammed into my chest, dragging me backward. Every nerve in my body exploded as if I had been set on fire. Air rushed into my lungs, sharp and jagged, like breathing in glass. My body convulsed. The world was blindingly bright. Sounds were deafening, machines beeping, voices shouting, "He's back! We got him!" I gasped, choking, my body trembling uncontrollably. Every cell screamed in agony, but the pain was nothing compared to the weight in my soul. I had returned. I was alive, but I could never be the same. I lay in the hospital bed, staring at the ceiling, trying to process everything. My mind reeled, fighting against the limitations of human thought to hold on to the immensity of what I had seen. Jesus, the mark, the deception, the souls cut off from God. It had been more real than anything I had ever known, more vivid than even the bed beneath me, the monitors attached to my arms. I tried to speak, but my throat was raw. A nurse rushed in, tears in her eyes. "We thought we lost you," she whispered. I had been dead, gone, but Jesus had sent me back. Days passed. My body healed, but my soul ached. The world felt different, thinner, more fragile, as if I could still see the edges of eternity pressing against it. Every news report, every conversation, every advancement in technology sent shivers through me. Then, one night, as I lay in the hospital room, I saw it. The news report, a global summit had just concluded. Leaders from every nation stood together, announcing a new initiative, a unified system to ensure economic stability, public health, and security, a way to make transactions seamless, a way to create a safer world. I watched as a smiling official raised his hand, revealing a sleek biometric implant beneath his skin. The newscaster called it a breakthrough, a necessary step toward the future. My heart pounded, my breath caught in my throat. It was beginning. Jesus had warned me. I turned off the TV and closed my eyes, my hands trembling. A wave of sorrow crashed over me, not for myself, but for the world, for those who would not see, for those who would not believe. But I had to speak. I had to warn them. If you are listening now, if you can hear my voice, you must prepare. Jesus warned me that many would not believe, but the deception has already begun. Stay close to him. Do not be deceived. The time is shorter than we think.